Before we start today's story, please let us know your location in the comment section and don't forget to like and subscribe. Mike has always despised me, but not for the reasons you might expect. People assume it's jealousy, but that couldn't be further from the truth. He was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our family, and I was, well, the opposite. That's where his resentment started. My mom doted on him, pampering him to the point where she did everything for him. His laundry, his meals, even asking me to help him with his schoolwork. "Justin," she'd say, hands on her hips, "help your brother with his math homework. He's struggling." "But Mom," I'd protest, "he just copies my answers anyway. How's that going to help him learn?" Her eyes would narrow. "Don't talk back. He's your brother, and family helps each other. Family helps each other." That was the line she always threw at me, but it only seemed to work one way. I was supposed to help Mike, but Mike never helped me. As a kid, I was quiet, introverted, and loved studying. I didn't need much from anyone. Mike, on the other hand, was loud and brash, more like our dad. He was always surrounded by friends, the center of attention. And me? I was the one who got mocked, even at home. "You're such a nerd," he'd laugh, pushing my glasses up my nose. "Do those glasses make you smarter, or are they just for decoration?" "Leave me alone, Mike," I'd mutter, pulling away. "What are you gonna do about it, ugly loser?" It wasn't just words either. Once, he put stones in my cereal. Stones. I caught it just in time, but when I went to Mom about it, she just laughed. "Oh, Justin," she said, barely looking up from her magazine. "That's just how brothers bond. Don't be so serious all the time." But it didn't feel like bonding. It felt like war. He'd sneak into my room, read my diary, and then tell everyone at school about my private thoughts. And then there were the fights. "You're such a hairy monkey," he'd say, smirking as his friends joined in, laughing at me. "Go back to your jungle." Once, during an argument that started over something stupid, probably the TV remote, he crossed a line I'll never forget. "You're such a waste of space," he spat, his face inches from mine. "Why don't you just kill yourself?" Those words hit me harder than anything else he'd ever done. I was already struggling, already questioning my worth, and hearing that from my own brother was devastating. I wanted to tell Mom, to make her see how much his words hurt, but when I finally worked up the courage, it only made things worse. "Mom," I said quietly, standing in the kitchen doorway while she cooked dinner. "Mike told me to kill myself today." She turned, spatula in hand, and gave me a look of annoyance. "What did you do to make him say that?" "Nothing," I said, my voice trembling. He hates me for no reason." "Don't be dramatic, Justin," she snapped. "You're always irritating him. Maybe if you stopped being so annoying, he wouldn't say things like that." I stood there, stunned, as the words sank in. My fault for irritating him? Was that really how she saw it? Things just kept getting worse. The bullying didn't stop, it only escalated. One time, when we were in high school, Mike tried to burn my hair. He actually held a lighter behind me and flicked it on. I felt the heat before I even smelled the singed ends, and I whipped around, slapping his hand away. "What the hell is wrong with you, Mike?" I yelled, my voice shaking. He just laughed, the way he always did when he knew he'd gone too far. "Relax, I was just playing. Don't be such a crybaby." But it wasn't funny. It never was. This wasn't some harmless prank. It was dangerous. Furious, I stormed into the kitchen to tell Mom. Surely this time, she'd realize he'd crossed the line. "Mom," I said, nearly in tears, "Mike just tried to burn my hair." She barely looked up from her crossword puzzle. "Oh, Justin, don't be dramatic. He's just playing." "That's what brothers do." "Playing?" I shouted. "Who plays like that? He could have seriously hurt me." "Stop yelling," she snapped. "You're always making a big deal out of nothing." I couldn't believe it. But this time, Dad overheard the argument. He walked in, his face dark with anger. "Burning someone's hair isn't playing," Dad said firmly, glaring at Mike. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Mike looked startled, like he hadn't expected anyone to take my side. "I was just messing around, Dad." "Calm down." "Messing around? You're lucky Justin didn't get hurt," Dad snapped. "Enough is enough, Mike. You've got serious issues, and if you keep this up, I'll call the police next time." Mike froze, his usual smirk replaced with shock. He wasn't used to facing real consequences, and it was clear he didn't know how to respond. Later that night, Dad came into my room. I was sitting at my desk, pretending to study, but really, I was replaying the whole scene in my head. "Got a minute?" Dad asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Yeah," I said hesitantly, not sure what to expect. He stepped in and closed the door behind him. I know I've been hard on you, he began, sitting on the edge of my bed. I've always thought you could handle yourself because you're smart and responsible. But I've realized I've been wrong about Mike. He's not just being immature. He's a bully. Hearing him say that was like a weight being lifted off my chest. For the first time, someone in my family truly understood what I'd been going through. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my emotions in check. I've been dealing with this for years, Dad, I admitted. And it's not just Mike. He's got half the school bullying me too. He eggs them on. Dad's face hardened. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because no one listens, I said quietly. Mom always brushes it off and Mike just gets worse if I complain. Dad let out a long breath, looking more frustrated than I'd ever seen him. Well, that stops now, he said firmly. I'm going to the school tomorrow. They'll handle the bullies, or they'll answer to me. The next day, true to his word, Dad met with the school principal and laid it all out. He made it clear that there would be serious consequences if the bullying didn't stop. That evening, he took things a step further. I signed you up for MMA classes, he told me over dinner. I blinked at him, surprised. MMA? Like fighting? Exactly, he said. You're a smart kid, Justin, but you need to learn how to stand up for yourself. These bullies and your brother, they need to know you're not someone to mess with. At first, the idea of me, a nerdy, bookish kid, trying to learn MMA was laughable. Even I thought it was ridiculous. But I went along with it, carving out time for my studies to attend classes at the local gym. To my surprise, I actually enjoyed it. I was focused, determined to prove to myself and everyone else that I could do this. Slowly but surely, I started to notice changes. My body grew stronger, my confidence grew with it, and before long, MMA had completely transformed my life and physique. One day, Mike crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I had been saving my pocket money for weeks. Chores, tutoring other kids, anything to scrape together some cash for something I wanted. That afternoon, I discovered the money was gone. At first, I thought I might have misplaced it, but then I heard laughter outside. Peeking through the window, I saw Mike and his friends, and that's when I noticed the unmistakable bulge in his jacket pocket. My stomach sank. I grabbed my shoes and stormed out. Mike, I yelled, marching straight toward him. He was straddling his bike, about to ride off. He smirked when he saw me. What's your problem now, nerd? You know what my problem is, I said, glaring at him. Give me back my money. Now. Mike laughed, glancing at his friends. Your money? Oh, come on, Justin. Don't be so stingy. I needed it. For what? So you can waste it with these idiots? I snapped, pointing at his friends, who were watching the argument with amused grins. He shrugged, completely unbothered. Maybe, or maybe I'll spend it on something better. You should have hidden it better, genius. Something inside me snapped. For years, I had let him get away with his antics, brushing off his taunts and cruelty, but this was different. He stole from me, and he didn't even care. Give it back, I said, stepping closer. What are you gonna do, Justin? Mike sneered. Run to Dad? Cry about it? That's all you're good for. Before I knew it, my fist connected with his face. Mike stumbled backward, dropping his bike and landing on his back, wide-eyed and stunned. For a second, even I was shocked at what I'd done. Whoa! One of his friends muttered, stepping back. Mike scrambled to sit up, his hand on his cheek. You punched me, he exclaimed, as if he couldn't believe it. You're damn right I did, I said, reaching into his pocket and yanking out my money. I shoved it into my pocket and then glared down at him. And you're lucky that's all I did. Mike's shock quickly turned into tears. He started wailing, loud and pitiful, like a little kid who just lost his toy. Are you serious right now? I muttered, staring at him crying on the ground. It was almost funny. This tough, cocky guy suddenly reduced to a blubbering mess. Of course, that's when Mom came rushing out of the house, alarmed by the commotion. What is going on out here? She demanded, her eyes darting between Mike and me. She ran to Mike, helping him up. Michael, are you okay? What happened? Through his sobs, Mike pointed at me. He hit me, Mom. Mom's eyes widened in shock as she turned to me. Justin, you hit your brother? He stole my money. I shot back. The money I've been saving for weeks. He took it from my room, and I caught him just now. Still, she said, her voice stern. You're his older brother. You're supposed to set an example, not fight him. What kind of message does this send? Mike stood there, smirking through his tears, clearly enjoying watching me get scolded. But before Mom could say more, Dad came out onto the porch, his face dark and unreadable. "What's all this yelling about?" Dad demanded, walking over to us. "Your son," Mom began, but Dad held up a hand to stop her. "I'll hear it from them. Justin, you first." I took a deep breath and explained everything. "Mike stole my money, Dad. I caught him outside just now, and when I confronted him, he wouldn't give it back. So, yeah, I punched him and took it back myself." Dad nodded slowly, then turned to Mike. "Is that true?" Mike crossed his arms, pouting. "I needed it for a date. He's my brother. He should help me out." Dad's expression hardened. "Help you out? By letting you steal from him?" "Mike, you're lucky Justin only punched you. Anyone else would have called the police." Mike's jaw dropped. "The police? For pocket money? That's ridiculous." "No, what's ridiculous is you thinking you can take whatever you want without consequences," Dad said firmly. Mike's smirk was gone now. He glanced at Mom, hoping she'd defend him, but Dad wasn't done. "Justin has every right to be angry. You've been spoiled for far too long, Mike, and it's time you start taking responsibility for your actions." Mike's face turned red with frustration. He clenched his fists and yelled, "I hate you, Justin. I hate all of you." Then, he turned and stormed back into the house, slamming his bedroom door and locking himself in. After that punch, something changed. Mike kept his distance from me, and for the first time, I felt like he understood that I wasn't going to put up with his bullying anymore. Dad's stern stance made it clear that his antics wouldn't be tolerated. But Mike wasn't about to let it go entirely. He couldn't touch me physically anymore, but that didn't stop him from finding other ways to lash out. Whenever our parents weren't around, he'd mutter insults under his breath as he passed me in the hallway. "Nerd. Loser." Sometimes, he'd laugh to himself like I was some kind of joke. One day, I had enough. I caught him in the kitchen as he grabbed a soda from the fridge. "Mike, can we just talk?" He glanced at me, rolling his eyes. "Talk about what?" "How you're such a goody two-shoes now." I sighed. "About why you're like this. Why can't we just get along? We're brothers." Mike slammed the fridge shut and turned to face me. "Brothers? Don't kid yourself. You're Dad's little favorite, the golden boy who can do no wrong." "That's not true, and you know it," I argued. "I've worked hard for everything I have. If you just—" "Oh, shut up." He cut me off, walking past me. "Go write it in your diary or something." I stood there, my fists clenched, trying to figure out what I'd done to deserve his constant disdain. The worst part was that even if I wanted to talk things out, I couldn't. If Mike needed something, he'd go through Mom instead of talking to me directly. It was ridiculous. One evening, I asked Mom, "Why can't Mike just talk to me?" "I'm right here," she sighed, stirring a pot on the stove. "Justin, you know how he is. Just give him time." "Time for what?" "He's been like this for years." I shot back. "Maybe you need to be more understanding," she said softly, not even looking at me. Her words felt like a slap in the face. "Understanding? Of what?" "He treats me like garbage, Mom. Doesn't that bother you?" She finally turned to face me, her expression tired. "Justin, I don't want to get involved in your arguments. You're both my sons, and I love you equally." That line, "I love you equally," felt hollow. If she loved us equally, why was she always excusing his behavior? By the time I graduated high school, I was counting down the days until I could leave. I'd worked hard for years, pouring everything into my studies. When I earned a full scholarship to my dream university, I felt a surge of pride. Dad threw a small party to celebrate, inviting a few close family friends. Even Mom seemed genuinely happy for me. Mike, though, barely said a word. He sat in the corner of the room, scrolling on his phone, looking bored out of his mind. At one point, I walked over to him. "Hey, Mike," I said, trying to bridge the gap one last time. "I'm leaving in a week. I hope we can stay in touch." He didn't even look up. "Yeah, sure. Whatever." When the day finally came for me to leave, Dad helped me load my bags into the car. "You're going to do great things, Justin," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Thanks, Dad," I said, feeling a lump in my throat. Mom hugged me tightly, whispering, "We're so proud of you. Call us when you get there, okay?" As I glanced back at the house, I saw Mike standing in the doorway. For a moment, I thought he might say something. Instead, he just turned and walked back inside without a word. The first few months at university were like a breath of fresh air. I made friends who actually appreciated me for who I was. My classes were challenging but exciting, and I finally felt like I was in a place where I belonged. Best of all, the constant weight of Mike's insults was gone. For the first time in years, I felt a profound sense of peace. I met Brenda during our second year at university, at a frat party of all places. A friend introduced us, and the moment she smiled at me, I was hooked. She had this energy about her, this mix of confidence and kindness that made it impossible not to be drawn to her. We spent the entire night talking, completely ignoring the chaos of the party around us. By the end of it, I'd gotten her number, and from then on, we were inseparable. It didn't take long before I realized she was special. I introduced her to my family over the holidays, and they adored her. She fit right in, charming everyone with her wit and easygoing nature. My mom pulled me aside at one point and said, "Justin, don't let this one go. She's a keeper." "I know, Mom," I said, grinning ear to ear. By the time our final year rolled around, we were deeply in love and talking about a future together. Then, everything changed. Brenda called me one evening, her voice trembling. "Justin, I need to tell you something," she said. "What's wrong?" I asked, concern tightening my chest. She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." I was stunned. For a moment, I couldn't speak. We'd always been careful, and this wasn't part of the plan. "Are you sure?" I finally managed. "Yes," she whispered. I took the test 3 times. There was a long silence as I tried to process what this meant for us. "Okay," I said, determination settling in. "We'll figure this out. We'll get through it together." Her voice cracked as she replied, "Do you really mean that?" "Of course I do," I said firmly. "Brenda, I love you. We'll handle this." We decided to get married right after graduation. The wedding was small and simple, just close family and friends. It wasn't the grand celebration we'd imagined, but it was still beautiful. I remember standing at the altar, watching her walk down the aisle, and thinking she was the most stunning woman I'd ever seen. For those few hours, surrounded by people who loved us, everything felt perfect. For years, I held on to that image of Brenda as my dream girl. I believed in monogamy, in the idea of one person to share your life with. Even when other women showed interest, I never entertained the thought. Brenda was my everything, and I never wanted to hurt her. But then I found out about the affair. It was an accident, really. I came across a text on her phone, a message from her coworker, Paul, that made my stomach drop. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but when I confronted her, the truth came out. "It's not what you think," she said, tears streaming down her face. "It's over now, I swear." "How long?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and heartbreak. She hesitated, looking down at the floor. "A few years," she admitted softly. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "A few years? Brenda, we have a child together. How could you do this to us?" She reached out to me, but I stepped back. "I don't know," she sobbed. "I was stupid, Justin. I made a mistake. Please, I'll do anything to fix this." I wanted to walk away right then, but I couldn't. I thought about our child, about the life we'd built together. "We'll get through this," I said finally, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "But it's going to take time." For a while, things did get better, or so I thought. Then came the fling with her high school ex. This time, I found out through a mutual friend who'd seen her out of state. When I confronted Brenda, she broke down again. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she said, tears in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you, Justin. Please don't give up on us." I stared at her, trying to reconcile the woman I'd fallen in love with and the one standing before me. "Do you even love me?" I asked quietly. "Of course I do," she cried. "You're the love of my life. I don't know why I keep screwing up." I sat down, burying my face in my hands. "Brenda, I don't want to raise our child in a broken home," I said after a long pause. "But I can't keep going through this. I need you to prove to me that you're committed to this marriage." "I will," she promised. "I'll do whatever it takes." I chose to forgive her, not because I wasn't angry or hurt, but because I wanted to believe we could move past it. I wanted to believe in the family we'd built, in the life we'd started together. For a while, it seemed like things were finally heading in the right direction. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never fully trust her again. Every time her phone buzzed, every time she worked late, there was a nagging doubt in the back of my mind. Still, I pushed it aside. I told myself that forgiveness meant starting fresh, and I was determined to make it work. 4 years had passed since Brenda's second betrayal, and for a long time, I genuinely believed I'd made the right decision by forgiving her. She seemed to have changed, and we were happy, or at least I thought we were. We talked about our future, made plans, and shared dreams of growing old together. It felt like we'd finally moved past the dark times. But 3 months ago, everything came crashing down. It was a quiet evening. Brenda and I had just put our son to bed. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels, when she walked into the room. Her face was pale, her hands fidgeting nervously. "Justin," she said, her voice trembling. I muted the TV and looked up at her. "What's wrong?" I asked, immediately on edge. "I need to tell you something," she said, sitting down across from me. "It's about us, about our son." My stomach twisted. "Brenda, what is it?" She hesitated, and for a moment, I thought she might change her mind. But then she took a deep breath and said, "I've been sleeping with someone for quite some time." I stared at her, unable to speak. The words hit me like a freight train. My chest tightened, and it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "What are you talking about?" I finally managed to choke out. Her eyes filled with tears, but there was a coldness in her tone. "There's a chance our son might not be yours." The silence that followed was deafening. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're joking," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not." I shot up from the couch, pacing the room as my mind raced. "How could you do this? After everything we've been through? After everything I've forgiven?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice shaking. It happened." I turned to face her, anger and heartbreak warring inside me. "You didn't mean for it to happen? Brenda, this isn't some minor mistake. This is our family, our son." She didn't respond. She just looked away, her silence cutting deeper than any words could. Over the next few days, I pressed her for answers. I needed to know why she'd kept such a monumental secret and how she could live with herself after shattering our family. But her responses were detached, almost indifferent. "It's complicated," she said one night when I demanded an explanation. "Complicated?" I snapped. "Brenda, I've been raising that boy as my son since the day he was born. Don't you think I deserve the truth?" She sighed, her voice flat. "You're a great father, Justin. None of this changes that." I couldn't believe how casually she was handling it. "It changes everything," I said, my voice breaking. "You've been lying to me for years. I've been raising a child who might not even be mine. Who's the father, Brenda? I need to know." For a long time, she refused to tell me. She dodged my questions, avoided eye contact, and gave vague answers that only fueled my frustration. But I wouldn't let it go. I deserved to know the truth. Finally, one evening, she cracked. She looked at me with a strange mix of guilt and defiance. "It's Mike," she said. I froze. "What did you just say?" "The father," she repeated, her voice steady now. "It's Mike." I stared at her, my mind struggling to process her words. "Mike, my brother?" "Yes." My knees gave out, and I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. "Are you serious right now?" I whispered, my voice shaking. She nodded, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of shame in her eyes. How did this even happen?" I asked, my voice rising. "When? Why?" Brenda took a deep breath and began to explain. "It started back when I stayed with your family over Thanksgiving. Remember? That first holiday I spent with you all?" I nodded slowly, my mind racing back to that time. Mike, who had always been cold and dismissive toward me, had been unusually polite and warm toward Brenda. At the time, I'd been relieved. I didn't want her to feel unwelcome, and I thought maybe he was finally warming up to me too. "He was kind to me," Brenda continued. "He made me feel included. I wanted to be accepted by your family, so I spent a lot of time with your mom whenever I could." Brenda noticed early on that Mike and I weren't particularly close, something she brought up one quiet evening during her first visit to my family's house. We were sitting in the den after everyone else had gone to bed, her hand resting lightly on mine. "Why don't you and Mike get along?" she asked softly, her brow furrowed in genuine concern. I hesitated. This wasn't a conversation I'd had with many people, but something about her made it easy to open up. "We've always been different," I began, my voice low. "He was the golden boy growing up, good at sports, charming, everyone loved him. And me? I was just the kid trying to keep up." Brenda gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "That's not fair to you, Justin. Did something happen to make things worse?" I exhaled, leaning back against the couch. "It wasn't one thing. It was a lot of small things. He was always better at everything, and he never let me forget it. By the time we were teenagers, it felt like we were strangers living in the same house. And now? I don't think we'll ever really fix things." Brenda nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe he just doesn't know how to connect with you. Sometimes people act distant because they don't know how to handle their own emotions." I chuckled dryly. You're giving him too much credit. Maybe, she said with a small smile. But you never know. People can surprise you. After that conversation, Brenda started inviting Mike to join us whenever we went out. If we were going to see a movie, she'd say, "Let's ask Mike to come along." I'd grumble at first, but I'd go along with it because I didn't want to seem ungrateful for her efforts. Do we really need to bring Mike? I asked one time as we were getting ready to head to the theater. Brenda rolled her eyes playfully. Yes, we do. He's your brother, Justin. Maybe spending time with him will help you two get closer. I sighed, grabbing my jacket. Fine, but if he picks another awful action movie, I'm blaming you. She laughed. Deal. Over time, Mike and I did start talking more. Nothing deep, but at least we were exchanging words instead of cold, awkward silence. It felt like progress. I also noticed Brenda and Mike hanging out on their own sometimes. They'd sit in the living room playing video games, laughing and joking like old friends. I didn't think much of it at the time. If anything, I thought it was nice that she was getting along with my family. One night, Brenda mentioned something about Mike while we were lying in bed. Did you know Mike just got out of a bad breakup? She asked, turning to face me. I frowned. No, I didn't. He doesn't talk to me about stuff like that. Well, he told me, she said. He seemed really upset about it. I think he's just lonely. Yeah, maybe, I muttered, not wanting to dwell on Mike's personal life. Brenda paused, then added, I think he needs someone to talk to, you know? Someone who'll listen. I'm sure he'll be fine, I said, brushing it off. But Brenda didn't brush it off. She kept spending time with him, and eventually, she admitted to me that their friendship had gone too far. I didn't mean for it to happen, Justin, she said, tears streaming down her face as we sat in the living room months after her shocking confession. He was so vulnerable, and I was just there. I stared at her, my mind racing. What are you saying, Brenda? She looked down at her hands, wringing them nervously. He flirted with me sometimes, and I didn't stop it. I thought it was harmless. But one night, I couldn't control myself anymore. I made a mistake. I felt the blood drain from my face. You and Mike? She nodded, sobbing. It was only once, and I felt so guilty afterward. I ran away from him and told myself it would never happen again. My stomach churned as her words sank in. Why didn't you tell me back then? I was scared, she admitted. And then, I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks later. My breath hitched. You mean? I don't know whose child he is, she interrupted, her voice breaking. Yours or Mike's? I had no way of knowing. But you were the dependable one, Justin. You were there for me. That's why I stayed with you. That's why we got married. It felt like my whole world was crashing down around me. The son I had loved, the boy I had raised and cherished, might not even be mine. I stared at Brenda, my voice trembling as I asked the question that had been clawing at the back of my mind. Are you still sleeping with him? Brenda froze, her lips parting as if to deny it. But then she slowly nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. Yes, she whispered, barely audible. My chest tightened, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. How long? I demanded, my voice sharper now. For a while, she admitted, looking down at her lap. We kept in touch. I couldn't help it, Justin. The chemistry between us was undeniable. Chemistry? I repeated, my tone incredulous. So, what? You just sneak off whenever you felt the spark? You'd lie to me and run off to him? Brenda flinched but nodded again. Whenever I said I was working late or had a business trip, half of those times, I was with Mike, she confessed. We'd meet at hotels or— Stop, I interrupted, holding up a hand. I couldn't stomach hearing more. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I was teetering between fury and despair. Why, Brenda? Why stay married to me if you really wanted him? She looked at me with wide, tear-filled eyes. I didn't want to break up our family, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't want to be the one to destroy what we had. You're such a wonderful father to our son, Justin, and I knew how much it would hurt you. I didn't know how to stop. It started as a mistake, and then— A mistake? I interrupted again, my voice rising. A mistake is something you regret immediately, Brenda. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Over and over again, you chose to betray me. You chose him. Brenda sobbed, covering her face with her hands. I'm so sorry, she cried. I don't even know why I'm like this. I didn't want to hurt you, Justin. I swear, I didn't. I held up my hand again, signaling her to stop. My voice was eerily calm now. I'm glad you finally told me the truth, I said, each word measured and deliberate. Brenda looked at me, her tear-streaked face a mix of confusion and fear. You're not going to yell at me, she asked, her voice trembling. I shook my head, standing up from the couch. No. What's the point? You've already done enough damage. Screaming isn't going to change anything. I'm done, Brenda. Done? She echoed, panic flashing in her eyes. I'm packing up and moving out, I said firmly, walking toward the bedroom. Brenda jumped up from the couch, running after me. Please, Justin, don't do this, she begged, grabbing my arm. I made a terrible mistake, but I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything to make it right. I pulled my arm away, not meeting her gaze. I've heard enough, I said quietly. Right now, I need to figure out my next steps. I stayed silent as I walked over to the cupboard, pulling out my suitcase and throwing it onto the bed. My hands moved mechanically, grabbing shirts and pants from the hangers and folding them. Brenda was behind me, her voice shaky as she pleaded with me. Justin, please, stop. Don't do this. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. If you really love me, you'll fight for us. Isn't that what marriage is about? Fighting through the hard times? I didn't respond. My hands kept working, folding and packing as though her words weren't cutting into me. Justin, she said again, her voice growing louder. Are you really going to throw away everything we've built? People make mistakes in every marriage. This doesn't have to be the end. I paused for a moment, gripping the edge of the suitcase. Finally, I turned to look at her. Mistakes? I repeated, my voice calm but heavy with disbelief. Sleeping with my brother wasn't a mistake, Brenda. It was a decision, a deliberate choice. Over and over again. Her face crumpled, and she began crying harder. But think about our son, Justin, she said, her voice breaking. What about him? Do you really want him growing up in a broken home? Children need both their parents together. I clenched my jaw, the words hitting a nerve. I zipped up the suitcase with a sharp motion and turned to face her fully. And what if he's not even mine? I said bluntly, my voice steady but cutting. Brenda's sobs turned into an angry wail. How can you say that? She cried, taking a step closer to me. You've been his father since the day he was born. How can you just walk away like this? You're being cruel, Justin. Cruel? I said, shaking my head in disbelief. Cruel is lying to me for years. Cruel is letting me raise a child while sleeping with my own brother behind my back. Don't talk to me about cruelty, Brenda. Her face twisted in anguish and she yelled, You're just going to leave? After everything we've been through? I thought you were better than this, Justin. I thought you were stronger. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I let a lot slide, Brenda. For years, I ignored the warning signs, hoping we could make it work. And yeah, I loved you. But most of that love was because we had a child together, and because we've been together for so long. I thought we could make it work. But this is too much. You broke something that can't be fixed. Brenda's tears fell freely, and she dropped to her knees in front of me, grabbing my hands. It's not too late, she begged. Please, Justin. Please don't do this. I gently pulled my hands away, stepping back. I can't, Brenda. I can't trust you anymore. Even if I could forgive you, I'll never forget this. And I don't think I can live with that. Her cries followed me as I carried my suitcase to the door. I turned back one last time, seeing her crumpled on the floor, her face buried in her hands. I wanted to feel something, anger, pity, anything, but I was empty. I left her there, crying on the doorstep, and checked into a hotel for the night. The next morning, with barely any sleep, I drove straight to my parents' house. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I rehearsed what I would say, but nothing felt right. By the time I pulled into their driveway, my stomach was in knots. My mom opened the door, her smile fading when she saw the look on my face. Justin? Honey, what's wrong? She asked, stepping aside to let me in. I walked in and stood awkwardly in the living room, my suitcase still in hand. My dad came out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. What's going on? He asked, his brow furrowing. I took a deep breath, my chest feeling like it was going to explode. I need to tell you something, I said, my voice wavering. About Brenda and Mike. Their faces tensed, concern etched into their features. I sat down on the couch, rubbing my hands together as I told them everything. The affair, the lies, the possibility that my son might not be mine. With each word, their expressions shifted from confusion to shock, their faces pale and their eyes wide. By the time I finished, the disbelief on their faces was undeniable. My mother, true to form, immediately jumped to Mike's defense. Justin, you must be mistaken, she said, shaking her head. Mike would never do something like this to you. He's your brother. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my temper in check. Mom, I'm not mistaken, I said firmly. Brenda told me everything. I wouldn't be standing here otherwise. But he's family, she said, her voice breaking. There has to be some kind of misunderstanding. Mike's always been a good son. Mom, I interrupted sharply. I'm calling him right now. Just stay quiet and listen. Let him prove me wrong if he can. She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped when she saw the determination on my face. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mike's number, pacing the room as it rang. My parents sat frozen on the couch, their eyes glued to me. Hey, Justin, Mike answered casually, his tone light and unsuspecting. I didn't waste any time. Mike, I know about you and Brenda, I said bluntly. I know about the affair. Don't even try to deny it. There was a brief pause, then a sharp laugh. What the hell are you talking about? He said, his voice tinged with forced disbelief. Brenda and I? That's insane, man. You're imagining things. Cut the crap, Mike, I snapped. She told me everything. The hotels, the lies, the sneaking around. It's over. Just admit it. Another pause, this one longer. She's lying, he said finally, his tone shifting. Brenda's always been, well, you know, she's not exactly a saint. Maybe you should be asking her about her character instead of coming at me with baseless accusations. I gritted my teeth, gripping the phone tighter. Don't you dare try to pin this on her. You knew exactly what you were doing. You went after my wife, Mike. Your own brother's wife. Do you even realize what kind of person that makes you? He scoffed. Oh, come on, Justin. Don't act so righteous. It's not my fault women are attracted to me. Maybe if you weren't so boring, Brenda wouldn't have come running to me in the first place. My blood boiled at his arrogance. You're unbelievable, I said through clenched teeth. You think this is a joke? I should have known you'd pull this kind of crap. You've always been self-centered. But this is a whole new level. Mike laughed again, this time with a mocking edge. What are you going to do, Justin? Tell Mom and Dad? Go ahead. They'll never believe you. I'm the golden child, remember? I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh of my own. Yeah? We'll see about that. At that moment, I put the call on speaker. Guess what, Mike? You've had an audience this whole time. The silence on the other end was deafening. Mike, my mother said, her voice trembling with both anger and disbelief. Is this true? Did you really? Mike stammered, clearly caught off guard. Mom, it's not like that. Justin's blowing this way out of proportion. Brenda came on to me. Okay, what was I supposed to do? She's the one who... Stop, she interrupted, her voice sharp and cold. Don't you dare blame her. You're my son, Mike. You should have known better. Mom, listen. Mike tried again, desperation creeping into his tone. You don't understand. She's manipulative. Enough! My mother snapped, her face pale with anger. I don't want to hear any more excuses. You betrayed your brother. How could you do something like this? Mike's words faltered, and for the first time, he sounded unsure of himself. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said weakly. It happened. And I... No, she said firmly, cutting him off. You don't get to play the victim here. The disappointment in her voice was palpable, and I could see the growing fury in her eyes as she realized the full extent of Mike's betrayal. In that charged moment, I felt a strange sense of vindication. For years, I had endured Mike's torment, but now the truth was out, and the roles had reversed. It was Mike who was exposed, his actions laid bare for everyone to see. I felt a sense of weight lift off my shoulders as I watched him squirm, caught in his own web of lies. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a shaky defense that was no match for the truth. As his words faltered, my father, usually reserved, couldn't contain his disappointment any longer. He reached for the phone, taking it from me without saying a word. I watched as he held the phone to his ear, his jaw clenched with frustration. What you've done is not just a betrayal of your brother but of this entire family, my father began, his voice calm but heavy with disapproval. You slept with your brother's wife and continued the affair even after they got married. Your actions have consequences, and they have irreversibly damaged the trust we had in you. I raised both of you to value family loyalty and decency. What you've shown today goes against everything I've tried to instill in you. Mike tried to interrupt, but my father silenced him with a sharp no. He took a deep breath, his voice growing colder. The disregard for your brother's feelings, the lack of respect for the sanctity of his marriage, it's unacceptable. You've not only hurt him, but tarnished the bonds that hold us together as a family. I feel like your mother and I are to blame for what you've become. We will no longer let you get away with this behavior." I could hear Mike muttering in the background, but my father wasn't finished. He continued, his words deliberate and pointed. "Starting today, I am cutting you off from the college funds I set up for you. You can figure out your own university fees. I won't be funding your lifestyle anymore. You think it makes you more of a man to sleep with married women? Well, now let's see what happens when you don't have my money to depend on." My father, the one who had always been the rock of the family, had drawn a line in the sand. And Mike, always so used to taking whatever he wanted, was about to learn the consequences of his actions. As my father delivered this, I remained composed. A part of me wanted to scream at Mike, to tell him how much he had ruined everything. But watching my father punish him felt like the ultimate vindication. I had exposed Mike's true nature, and it was clear he had underestimated the consequences of his actions. Mike, still persistent in his protests, tried to justify his behavior, twisting words and blaming everyone but himself. But my father wasn't having it. With one final, sharp statement, he ended the call, his voice cold and final. Mike's attempts to explain away what he had done were silenced, and I felt a sense of justice wash over me. My mother, who had been silently watching everything unfold, suddenly walked over and wrapped her arms around me. The embrace was tight, comforting, and it felt like something we hadn't shared in years. I could feel the weight of everything we had been through, and for the first time, she wasn't just my mother. She was offering her full support. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I should have believed you. I should have seen it sooner." I didn't know what to say. Her apology meant more than I could express, and in that moment, I felt a sense of vindication I never imagined possible. My mother, the woman who had always been there for me, was finally acknowledging the pain I'd been carrying for so long. Her arms around me were like a shield from the chaos of the world. After a few moments, my father and I discussed the next steps. He helped me find a lawyer who was experienced in handling messy divorces, someone who could guide me through the proceedings. Brenda and her lawyer tried to fight dirty, demanding alimony and accusing me of being unfit to care for our child. But everything seemed to work in my favor. The affair was a weighty factor, and I felt relieved knowing that the truth was on my side. We also arranged for a paternity test to confirm the child's parentage. I was bracing myself for the results, but nothing could have prepared me for the blow. When I found out that Mike was, in fact, the father of my son, it hit me like a ton of bricks. The pain of that realization was almost unbearable. The anger I had felt when Brenda first confessed her affair was nothing compared to this. The fact that the boy I had raised, the one I had cared for and loved as my own, was Mike's. It felt like everything I had known was a lie. But despite the crushing blow, I knew I couldn't let it destroy me. God works in mysterious ways, and somehow, I found the strength to move forward. Brenda begged me to continue visiting our son, pleading that he shouldn't suffer because of the mess we had made. She argued that the boy deserved love, and that he shouldn't be punished for something that wasn't his fault. But every time I saw him, I couldn't shake the reminder of Mike's betrayal. I hated that he reminded me so much of my brother, and it hurt too much to see him. Once the divorce was finalized, I finally felt free. The weight of the past years lifted off my shoulders. I moved into a bachelor pad, a place that was entirely mine. It felt surreal living on my own for the first time, especially since I had gotten married so young and never truly had time to experience independence. But deep down, I knew I was ready. I had always been self-sufficient, and now I had the freedom to live life on my terms. Honestly, I loved it. 2 weeks ago, my dad called me out of the blue, his voice serious but calm. He told me he had been thinking a lot about his will and had made a decision. He didn't want to leave anything to Mike. "If there's one thing you should know about me, Justin," he said, his tone firm, "when I make up my mind about something, I stick to it. Mike won't get a penny. Not after what he's done." I could feel the weight of his words, and honestly, I wasn't surprised. After everything that had happened with Mike and Brenda, I knew my dad was done with him. He didn't mince words. He'd never been a man of half measures, and once his mind was made up, there was no changing it. Mike had tried reaching out, showing up at our parents' doorstep, begging for forgiveness. But my dad refused to let him inside. I was surprised to hear that my mom, who usually couldn't resist Mike's tantrums, had also had enough of him. It must have been painful for her, but it was clear that she was done too. As we continued talking, my dad let slip that, in his new will, everything would go to me. "You're my son, Justin, and you've always had my back. I trust you to do right by this family. My jaw tightened when he added, I'll leave Mike $1, just to ensure he doesn't protest later. He doesn't deserve a single cent. I couldn't believe it. My dad had worked his entire life for his assets. His retirement fund, life insurance, the house they lived in, all of it amounted to nearly $1 million. I had always known that my father had worked hard, but hearing the full extent of what he'd accumulated hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't in it for the money, but knowing that I would have to carry this weight, this responsibility, made everything feel more real. He went on to explain that the only condition in his will was that if he passed before my mom, she would continue living in their house, but the ownership would transfer to me. That didn't bother me at all. I would want to take care of my mom in her final years. The house was just a symbol of that care, of the life my parents had built. But somehow, Mike found out about the changes to the will. Yesterday, he called me, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. Justin, he started, trying to sound remorseful. I know I messed up, okay? I get it, but I've been struggling. College has been tough, and well, after Brenda found out about the paternity, she's been hounding me for child support. I don't have any money. I've been looking for part-time jobs, but I can't find anything. It's been hard, man. I don't know what to do anymore. I didn't respond immediately, the weight of his words hanging in the air. I could hear the same old Mike in his voice, the one who always seemed to find a way to play the victim. He continued, his tone softening. Look, I just need your help, okay? I need you to talk to the family. We can start fresh. I really need your help. I couldn't help but laugh in his face. As soon as Mike started talking about needing my help, I was done. My voice was cold when I said, you should have thought about all this before sleeping with my wife and getting her pregnant. You don't get to come crawling back now. Mike tried to argue, his voice rising with every word. You're being unfair. Brenda's just as much to blame here as I am. I shook my head, my patience wearing thin. I agree, but I already divorced her. She's your problem now. Don't come to me with your mess. This is the consequence of your actions, Mike. His tone shifted, desperation creeping in as he raised his voice. You don't understand. Everyone's on my case. Our grandparents, relatives, they won't stop talking about it. I cut him off before he could say more. I don't care, Mike. You're no longer the favored son. You're the black sheep. You slept with your brother's wife. No one owes you sympathy. Not me, not anyone. Mike started crying. His voice cracked as he begged, Justin, please. I can't take it anymore. I'm trying to fix things. Can't we just start over? Hearing him cry, for the first time in years, hit me in a way I didn't expect. Part of me wanted to feel for him, but the other part, the part that had been betrayed, wasn't ready to let go of the anger. I swallowed the bitterness and said, we're done, Mike. Don't ever call me again. I'm not your brother anymore. You've lost that privilege. There was a silence after that, the kind that felt heavy, like the weight of everything that had happened settled between us. He didn't say anything else. I hung up and sat there, staring at my phone, feeling a strange emptiness. I just severed ties with my brother, the person I'd known my whole life. Since then, I've been replaying our conversation over and over in my head. I hate that I'm even considering how his crying made me feel a little guilty. It's not like I wanted him to suffer, but hearing him break down like that, it was a first, at least not since we were kids. I won't lie, it hurt a little, but I also know it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change what he did, what he's taken from me. Now I'm sitting here wondering if I should talk to our parents about him. I don't feel comfortable raising another man's child. Timothy was my son, at least in my mind, but now I know he's Mike's. And that hurts in ways I can't explain. I cried for days when I found out, and I still feel that raw pain every time I think about it. But the real reason I don't want to have contact with Timothy isn't just because he's Mike's son. It's because of Brenda. If I stay in touch with her child, I know she'll find a way to worm her way back into my life. And right now, I need my own space. You can call me cruel, you can call me selfish, but I don't care. I can't see him again. Not for a long time, at least. It was my mother who told Mike about my dad changing his will. That was the tipping point. When Mike called me, I could tell it was his last attempt to make things right. He sounded desperate, like he'd exhausted every other option. I confronted my mom about it in front of my dad, and she broke down immediately. Justin, I've told you. I think he's learned his lesson, she said, her voice trembling. I wasn't having it. You can't seriously be defending him after everything he's done, Mom. After what he did to me, to this family. My dad, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up, his voice firm. If you feel Mike's actions are forgivable, Then we've got a problem, he said, looking directly at my mom. I'm not going to live in a house where you think what he did was okay. If you talk to him again, if we ever find out, you can pack your bags and leave. His words were as final as they could be. My mom didn't argue. She didn't say a word after that. It was the first time I'd seen her quiet on the matter, and honestly, it felt like a weight had been lifted off me. I hope she learned from her mistakes. It's been 5 months since all of that, and I can honestly say my relationship with my parents has improved a lot. My dad and I now go golfing every weekend. It's become something we do just for fun, and it's nice. It's almost like I've shifted from being his son to more of a buddy. We talk about everything, from work to sports, to just life in general. My mom, though, she still misses Mike, but she's kept her distance. There hasn't been any more contact, at least not that I know of. The last I heard, Mike had dropped out of college because he couldn't afford his fees. He and Brenda were living together, raising Timothy, which honestly might be for the best. I can't even bring myself to feel sorry for him anymore. The things he did, I'm done with it. I don't bring up Mike with my parents, and neither do they. It's like an unspoken rule now. It feels like we've moved past him, which is a huge relief. Work's been going great. I got promoted 2 months ago, and my salary has improved significantly. It's been a nice change, honestly. I feel like I'm finally in a place where I can focus on my future without all the baggage weighing me down. As for my personal life, I haven't dated anyone yet. I know I should probably get back out there, but right now, I feel like I still need some time and space to heal. I've been attending therapy, which has been helping, and I'm just taking things one day at a time. I guess we'll see how that works out. I never thought I'd be here. Honestly, if you'd told me a year ago that I'd be getting married, I would have laughed. I was still in the midst of figuring out who I even was after everything with Mike and Brenda. I'd buried myself in work, therapy, and trying to rebuild my life. And the thought of opening myself up to someone else seemed impossible. But then, I met Sarah. It wasn't anything like what I had with Brenda. It wasn't explosive or passionate. It was calm, steady, and most importantly, real. She wasn't interested in drama or playing games. She didn't want me for what I had. She wanted me for who I was. We took things slow, as I had to, but over time, I realized that I was ready for this. So when I proposed to her, it felt like the beginning of something I'd been waiting for my entire life. We've been married for 6 months now, and it's everything I could have hoped for. I've never felt this at peace before. But, in the back of my mind, there's always been Mike. As much as I try to push him out of my thoughts, it's hard not to keep track of what's happening with him. It's not that I want to know. It's that, in this small town, news travels fast, and I hear things. Things about his life with Brenda. Things about how they've been struggling. Things about how Timothy, the son I was led to believe was mine, is growing up in a household that's anything but stable. Mike and Brenda have been together, raising Timothy, but it's a far cry from the ideal family life. They're constantly scraping by, living paycheck to paycheck. Mike tried to play the family man card, trying to act like he was a changed person, but I knew better. The fact is, they're both living in the consequences of their choices. And, as much as I hate to admit it, it's hard not to feel a little vindicated. Their life isn't easy. Mike and Brenda are always fighting about money, and Mike's trying to juggle working odd jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. It's nothing like the life they had planned when they first started their affair. Brenda's no saint either. I've heard that she's been reaching out to people for handouts, always looking for a way to make ends meet. But if you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, right? I know that sounds cold, but honestly, I can't bring myself to feel sorry for them anymore. They made their bed, and now they have to lie in it. What they did to me, to my family, it was unforgivable. It wasn't just about the affair or the betrayal. It was about the way they tore everything apart. So now, when I see the struggles they're facing, I can't help but think that maybe this is exactly what they deserve. Life doesn't owe anyone a free pass, and they sure as hell didn't earn one. As for me, I've moved on. I'm building my future with Sarah, and I have a family I can rely on. My relationship with my parents is solid again, and we don't talk about Mike anymore, thankfully. I can't deny that part of me still wants to see Mike face the consequences of his actions, but I've learned that the best revenge is living well, and that's what I'm doing now. So yeah, Mike might have gotten his life back with Brenda, but it's a hard life, one that's built on lies and bad decisions. I don't have any sympathy left for them. They made their choices, and now they have to deal with the fallout. It's not my problem anymore. I've got my own life to live, and this time, I'm not looking back. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.